Most men over 35 think experience protects them from making relationship mistakes. The truth? Some of the biggest mistakes happen after 35. Not because men are weak, not because they lack confidence, but because they unknowingly give away things that should never be traded for affection, attention, or love. And the worst part is that many don't realize what's happening until the damage is already done. That's why today we're talking about 10 things men over 35 should never do for a woman, no matter how much you like her. These lessons have nothing to do with playing games and everything to do with protecting your value, your future, and your peace of mind. So stick around until the end, because one of these mistakes could completely change the way you look at relationships. And if you're a man who wants to become stronger, wiser, and more respected as you get older, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now. We share practical insights designed specifically for men over 35, and we're currently working toward our goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers. Your subscription helps us keep creating this kind of content and brings you along for the journey. Topic 1. Never make her the center of your entire life. A lot of men reach their mid-30s believing that finding the right woman means reorganizing their entire life around her. At first, that shift can even feel romantic. He starts making more room in his schedule, changing priorities, and investing more time into the relationship. The problem begins when, little by little, he starts letting go of the very things that made him who he is. Before he realizes it, his life no longer has its own center. Everything starts revolving around someone else. What's interesting is that this rarely happens overnight. It usually starts with small compromises. He stops seeing his friends because she wants more time together. He gives up a hobby he's enjoyed for years because it suddenly seems less important. He postpones personal projects, career goals, and even long-term dreams to accommodate her wishes. When he finally looks back, he realizes the relationship has taken up so much space that there's barely any room left for his own identity. And ironically, the very thing he thought would strengthen the relationship may actually start weakening it. Mature men understand a truth that many learn the hard way. A woman may fall for a man who has purpose, direction, and an interesting life, but it's difficult to keep admiring someone who gave all of that up. Think about a river. It's attractive because it's moving. Once the water stops flowing, it loses its power. In the same way, a man has to keep his goals, friendships, interests, and personal growth alive. And there's an even deeper reason for that. One that's directly connected to a mistake many men make without even realizing it when they enter a relationship. Topic 2. Never constantly seek her approval. There's a huge difference between valuing a woman's opinion and depending on it to feel good about yourself. Many men over 35 don't realize when they've crossed that line. Little by little, they start measuring their decisions based on her reactions. If she approves, they feel confident. If she doesn't, they begin questioning their own judgment. The problem is that when a man hands over control of his self-esteem to someone else, he ends up losing something far more valuable than he realizes. This behavior often shows up in subtle ways. He changes the way he dresses because he thinks she'll like it more. He stops expressing honest opinions to avoid upsetting her. He constantly tries to impress her, hoping for validation in return. It's almost like he's stuck in a job interview that never ends. The funny thing is that most people can sense when someone is desperately seeking approval. And as strange as it sounds, the harder a man tries to prove his value, the less valuable he tends to appear. Emotionally mature men understand that respect and attraction don't come from needing approval. They come from inner confidence. They listen to opinions, consider advice, and remain open to learning, but they don't abandon who they are just to make someone happy. Imagine a captain steering a ship through a storm. He may listen to suggestions from the crew, but he doesn't hand over the wheel every time someone speaks up. And that ability to stay on course becomes even more important when emotions start overpowering logic, something that often causes men to overlook warning signs that were right in front of them all along. Topic 3. Never ignore red flags because of attraction. Attraction has an incredible ability to distort perception. A man can be highly rational in business, careful with investments, and selective about friendships. But when he becomes emotionally attached to a woman he feels strongly about, he may start excusing behavior that he would normally consider unacceptable. It's almost as if the mind begins creating explanations to protect what the heart has already chosen. The problem is that red flags rarely show up as giant warning signs. Most of the time they appear quietly and subtly. Many men have been through something like this. She shows small signs of disrespect, and he tells himself she was just having a bad day. She lies about something minor, and he convinces himself it's no big deal. She only seems interested when it's convenient for her, but he interprets it as independence. Little by little, those small red flags pile up until they become impossible to ignore. The most dangerous part is that when someone is emotionally invested, they're often looking at potential when they should be looking at patterns. Mature men learn to pay more attention to actions than words. They understand that character isn't revealed during the best moments. It's revealed during difficult situations when nobody is trying to impress anyone. A good rule of thumb is to watch for consistency. How does she treat other people? How does she react when she doesn't get what she wants? How does she handle responsibility and frustration? Those answers reveal far more than any romantic declaration ever could. And there's a reason so many men ignore these signs early on. They believe that if they make enough sacrifices, they can make the relationship work. But that's exactly where many begin giving up something that should never be up for negotiation. Topic 4. Never sacrifice your self-respect to keep her. Every healthy relationship requires compromise. That's just part of being with another person. The problem begins when a man confuses commitment with submission. Little by little, he starts tolerating situations that go against his values simply because he's afraid of losing a woman he cares about. What looks like a small sacrifice today turns into another one tomorrow, and then another after that. Before he knows it, he's no longer protecting the relationship, he's bargaining away pieces of his own dignity. One of the clearest signs of this happens when a man starts accepting disrespect in silence. She makes humiliating comments in front of other people, and he laughs it off to avoid conflict. She crosses boundaries that used to matter to him, but he chooses not to bring it up because he doesn't want to seem insecure. In some cases, he even knows something is wrong, but convinces himself that putting up with it is simply the price of keeping the relationship alive. The truth is that any relationship built on the gradual loss of self-respect eventually comes with a very expensive emotional bill. Experienced men understand that respect isn't something you constantly demand. It's something you build and protect through clear boundaries. When a man shows that he's willing to abandon his values just to keep someone around, he sends a dangerous message that his boundaries are negotiable. And people tend to treat your boundaries exactly the way you present them. That's why the most important question isn't what he's willing to do for a woman. It's what he's willing to give up about himself in order to keep her. And that question becomes even more important when he's tempted to take responsibility for problems that were never his to carry in the first place. Topic 5. Never become her personal rescuer. There's something deeply masculine about wanting to protect and help the people you care about. That instinct isn't a problem. In fact, it's an admirable quality when it's used the right way. The problem begins when a man starts believing that his value in a relationship depends on his ability to solve every problem a woman has. Without realizing it, he stops being a partner and starts acting like a savior. And as noble as that may sound on the surface, it rarely ends the way he hopes it will. Many men fall into this trap because they believe love is supposed to mean constant sacrifice. If she's having financial problems, he rushes in to fix them. If she's unhappy with her job, he takes on the emotional burden of the situation. If she keeps making poor decisions, he's always there to clean up the mess afterward. Over time, a dangerous dynamic develops. One person carries the entire relationship on his shoulders, while the other never develops the ability to face challenges on her own. The result is predictable. He becomes exhausted, while the problems keep showing up as if nothing has changed. Mature men understand the difference between supporting someone and carrying someone. Supporting means offering guidance, encouragement, and presence. Carrying means taking responsibility for things that belong to someone else. Think of a coach. He can teach techniques, correct mistakes, and motivate an athlete, but he can't run the race for him. In the same way, a healthy relationship happens when two people walk side by side, not when one person spends a lifetime dragging the other forward. And that tendency to take on too much responsibility is often connected to another common mistake, believing that being available all the time is the best way to show love and commitment. Topic 6. Never give unlimited access to your time. By the time a man reaches 35, he should already understand one of life's most valuable lessons. Time is the one resource he can never get back. Lost money can be earned again. New opportunities can appear. But time, once gone, is gone forever. And yet many men hand this precious resource away without thinking when they become emotionally invested in a woman. They cancel important commitments, put personal projects on hold, and rearrange their entire schedule just to be available whenever she's around. What looks like dedication is often nothing more than a lack of boundaries. There's a quiet belief that being constantly available shows interest. But in reality, it can create the opposite effect. When a man repeatedly abandons his own priorities to respond to every demand, he's sending a message that his own life doesn't require his attention. Think about someone who interrupts an important meeting, skips the gym, or postpones career goals every time a text message comes through. At first, that may seem romantic. Over time, however, it starts revealing something else entirely: a lack of clear priorities. And people tend to value what you clearly value yourself. Mature men understand that availability and presence are not the same thing. Being present means giving genuine attention when the moment calls for it. Being available all the time means failing to protect the things that matter in your own life. A man who respects his time isn't being cold or distant. He's showing that he has a mission, responsibilities, and goals that deserve his attention. Ironically, that ability to protect his time is often what strengthens respect inside a relationship. And maintaining that respect requires another skill many men avoid developing: the courage to speak the truth, even when it creates discomfort. Topic 7. Never stop speaking the truth to avoid conflict. One of the most common traps in adult relationships isn't too much conflict. It's the complete absence of it. That might sound strange at first, but many men spend years avoiding difficult conversations because they believe they're protecting the relationship. When something bothers them, they stay quiet. When they disagree with a behavior, they pretend it doesn't matter. When a boundary gets crossed, they swallow their frustration rather than risk creating tension. The problem is that what goes unsaid rarely disappears. Most of the time, it simply builds up. As time goes on, that silence starts collecting interest. The man begins feeling resentment, often without even realizing it. Small irritations slowly turn into major frustrations beneath the surface. And the strange part is that the other person may have no idea what's happening. After all, how can someone fix a problem that was never communicated? Many relationships don't fall apart because of one big argument. They weaken because one person spent so much time hiding what he truly thought. That authentic connection eventually disappeared. Real intimacy cannot exist where there's a constant fear of upsetting someone. Mature men understand that honesty doesn't mean aggression. It means courage. It means being able to express opinions, feelings, and boundaries in a firm but respectful way. A man who avoids every conflict eventually becomes predictable and passive. A man who speaks the truth with balance and confidence demonstrates authenticity and emotional strength. Ironically, it's often the willingness to have uncomfortable conversations that creates deeper respect inside a relationship. And staying true to yourself becomes even more important when it's time to decide what deserves the highest priority in your life. Topic 8. Never put her needs above your purpose. There's an important difference between prioritizing a relationship and abandoning your life's mission. Many men confuse the two. When they meet a woman they genuinely care about, they begin believing the relationship should sit at the absolute top of their priorities. Slowly, personal projects get postponed, career ambitions lose momentum, and old dreams get pushed into the background. The problem is that a man without direction doesn't just lose opportunities. He loses an essential part of who he is. Throughout life, the most fulfilled men tend to share one thing in common. They have something that drives them beyond the relationship itself. It could be a career, a business, a passion, a cause, or a goal that gets them out of bed every morning with energy and purpose. That doesn't mean they love a woman any less. It means they understand that a healthy relationship should complement a meaningful life, not replace it. When a man abandons his mission to focus entirely on the relationship, he places enormous pressure on something that was never meant to fulfill every area of his existence. Think about how many men reach their 40s, 50s, or even 60s carrying regrets about opportunities they let slip away. Not because they lacked talent, but because they lost sight of what they truly wanted to build. Mature men understand that purpose isn't selfishness. It's responsibility toward themselves. And interestingly enough, when a man remains committed to his mission, he becomes more interesting, more resilient, and more emotionally grounded. But there's another trap that often appears when a man starts losing that inner confidence, trying to earn love through resources, favors, and material sacrifices. Topic 9. Never try to buy love, loyalty, or desire. Few illusions are more dangerous than believing love can be bought. Maybe not literally, but through expensive gifts, constant favors, financial support, or endless attempts to impress someone. Many men over 35 have achieved a certain level of success and stability, which naturally gives them more resources than they had when they were younger. The problem begins when those resources become their primary strategy for earning affection, admiration, or emotional commitment. At first, this approach may seem like it's working. Gifts create smiles. Favors create gratitude. Generous gestures produce positive reactions. But there's a massive difference between appreciation and genuine attraction. Someone can appreciate what a man provides without feeling a deep connection to who he is. And when a relationship becomes overly dependent on external benefits, an uncomfortable question starts to emerge. What would happen if all of those benefits disappeared tomorrow? The answer to that question often reveals the true nature of the connection. Mature men understand that generosity is a virtue, but it should never be used as emotional currency. They give because they genuinely want to give, not because they're secretly hoping to purchase love in monthly installments. Real respect comes from character, presence, confidence, and authenticity. In the same way, loyalty cannot be bought with advantages, and desire cannot be negotiated like a business contract. And once a man truly understands that, he begins to recognize one final mistake that may be the most dangerous of them all: losing himself while trying to keep someone else. Topic 10. Never lose yourself trying to keep someone else. If there's one lesson many men only learn after years of experience, it's this: no relationship is worth the price of your identity. It sounds simple, but it's much harder to apply than most people realize. When a man becomes afraid of losing someone, he may begin changing small parts of himself just to keep the relationship alive. First, he hides his opinions. Then he gives up habits he once enjoyed. Next, he stops pursuing goals that used to matter deeply to him. It all happens gradually, almost without notice. The problem is that identity doesn't disappear overnight. It erodes slowly. It's like a rock being shaped by water over the course of years. One day, the man looks at his life and barely recognizes the person he's become. His friends notice the change. His energy starts fading. His confidence weakens. And ironically, the very thing he was trying so hard to preserve often begins falling apart as well. That's because one of the most attractive qualities any person can have is authenticity. When someone stops being who they are in order to constantly please someone else, that authenticity begins to disappear. Mature men understand that a healthy relationship should expand both people's lives, not shrink who they are. A woman can add love, companionship, and meaning to a man's journey, but she should never replace his essence. The men who grow older with the greatest sense of peace tend to carry one powerful belief: losing a relationship may be painful, but losing yourself is far worse. In the end, the real question isn't how to keep a woman interested. The real question is how to build a life so strong, respectable, and meaningful that no relationship ever requires you to abandon who you truly are. Conclusion. At the end of the day, this isn't really about women. It's about the man you become when you're in a relationship, the decisions you make, the standards you keep, the boundaries you protect, and the parts of yourself you're unwilling to sacrifice, no matter how strong your feelings may be. Because the truth is simple. The healthiest relationships are built by two complete people, not by one person losing himself to keep the other happy. The question is, as you listen to this video, did you recognize any of these mistakes in your own life? Have you ever given up something important for a woman and later regretted it? Or did you learn some of these lessons the hard way? Let me know in the comments. I'd genuinely like to hear your story. And if you found value in this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We're building a community for men who want to grow wiser, stronger, and more confident with age. We're also working toward our goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers, and every subscription helps us get one step closer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.